In 1900, China stood on the edge of absolute chaos. Foreign powers carved up the ancient empire like a melon, while secret societies called the Boxers spread terror through the provinces. They believed they were invulnerable to bullets. They believed they could drive out every foreigner with magic and fury. And in the middle of this powder keg, a British spy named Stanton Ware received orders that would change everything. But what makes this story truly remarkable is not the politics or the violence. It is what happened when this dangerous man met a woman who hated everything he represented. She was Russian, English, and Manchu royalty all at once. Her name was Zivana, and she would become both his greatest asset and his most impossible desire.
Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, make sure you subscribe to Daily Books and hit that notification bell. We bring you the most fascinating stories from literature every day. And trust me, you do not want to miss what comes next in this tale. Now, let us meet our protagonist. Major Stanton Ware was not your typical British officer. At 33 years old, he had already become a legend in intelligence circles. He spoke nearly every language and dialect of the Far East fluently. He had studied yoga and meditation with Tibetan lamas in their mountain monasteries. The Chinese said he possessed the ability to see the world behind the world. When the Prime Minister of England, the Marquis of Salisbury, grew concerned about reports coming from China, there was only one man everyone agreed should be sent. Send for Stanton Ware, they said. And so he went. But what Stanton Ware found in Peking horrified him. The British minister, Sir Claude MacDonald, was a fool. This man actually believed that everything was under control. He dismissed the Boxer threat as nothing more than young hooligans playing with magic tricks. He told Stanton Ware not to worry. Sir Claude even bragged about how the Dowager Empress had invited the diplomatic wives to tea and given them pearl rings. One family, all one family, the old Empress had said, while passing around jade cups. Sir Claude believed her completely. But Stanton Ware knew better. He had walked through the Chinese city and heard the whispers. "Who will attend to the foreign devil?" the shopkeepers muttered when they thought he could not understand. He saw the placards appearing on walls calling for death to all Westerners. He understood that China was a tinderbox waiting for a single spark. The Dowager Empress herself was the problem. This woman, who everyone called the Old Buddha, was perhaps the most powerful female ruler in history. She had clawed her way from concubine to empress through murder, manipulation, and sheer force of will. When her own nephew, the emperor, tried to modernize China, she imprisoned him on an island and took back all power. Now she was old, superstitious, and consumed with hatred for foreigners. Her advisors told her the Boxers had supernatural powers. They said these young men could not be killed by bullets, and she believed them because she wanted to believe them. Stanton Ware needed allies, he needed information, and he needed them fast. Stanton Ware knew exactly where to find the information he needed. In Peking, there was a place called the House of 1,000 Joys. Do not let the name fool you. This was not merely a house of pleasure. It was the most exclusive, most expensive, and most important information network in all northern China. The house was owned by a woman named Diverse Delight. She had trained her girls not only in the arts of beauty, but also in the arts of intelligence. When powerful mandarins and court officials came to enjoy themselves, they talked. And when they talked, the girls listened. Stanton Ware and Diverse Delight were old friends. She greeted him warmly when he arrived in disguise, wearing a long hooded cloak to hide his foreign features. "I hoped it was you whom I have missed for so many moons," she said. She told him everything. The year 1900 had been marked by astrologers as a year of misfortune for China. Blood and disaster, the crystal ball readers warned. The Boxers were growing stronger every day, moving closer to Beijing with each passing week. Their battle cry echoed through the provinces. Burn, burn, kill, kill. The Dowager Empress was not suppressing them. Quite the opposite. She was secretly encouraging them because she believed they could drive out the foreigners forever. But Diverse Delight knew something else. There was one man who might still save China from destruction. His name was Chang, and he was perhaps the most remarkable Chinese statesman of his century. Chang was 77 years old. He had negotiated treaties, built railroads and telegraphs, and fought his entire life to modernize China. He understood the West because he had traveled there. He knew that China could not win a war against all the great powers combined. The problem was that the Empress had exiled him to a distant province because he disagreed with her policies. But Diverse Delight had information. Chang would soon visit a prince named Tuan at his palace near the Western Mountains. If Stanton Ware could reach him there, perhaps together they could convince the Empress to stop the madness. There was just one problem. Stanton Ware could not approach Chang as a foreigner. The atmosphere was too dangerous. If anyone discovered a British spy trying to influence Chinese politics, both men would die. He would have to go in disguise. He would have to become a mandarin. This is where Diverse Delight introduced Stanton Ware to an old man named Wen. This mandarin was a friend of Chang and a patriot who loved China more than his own safety. He agreed to help, but Wen had a condition. Stanton Ware could not travel alone. A young mandarin traveling without a concubine would attract suspicion. He needed a woman with him, someone who could gather information in places where men could not go. And Wen knew exactly the right woman. She walked into the room and Stanton Ware forgot how to breathe. She was without question the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her skin was pale as porcelain. Her eyes held mysterious lights, and her hair was raven black with blue highlights that seemed almost supernatural. Her name was Zivana, though Wen called her perfect pearl, and she absolutely despised Englishmen.
Zivana's story was as complicated as the times in which she lived. Her father was a Russian prince named Vasily Kovanovich, who had fallen madly in love with an English noblewoman at a court function in London. They eloped together, and her mother's family never forgave them. The rejection broke her mother's heart. She could never speak of England without tears until the day she died. And so Zivana grew up hating the English and everything they represented. But there was more to her heritage. Her grandmother had been a Manchu princess of the royal house. This meant she had been raised in the ways and customs of imperial China. She knew the protocols of palaces. She understood the language of fans and glances that concubines used. She was the perfect spy. But when she learned she would be working with an Englishman, her beautiful face turned cold as jade. "I hate the English," she told Chang Wen. "Her family repudiated my mother because she married my father. They cut her from their lives as if she had never existed." Chang Wen was patient. "Have you forgotten, my child, that you are also a foreigner, and your mother was English? Your adopted country, China, needs your help." For one long moment, fire blazed in her eyes. Then she bowed her head in submission. "Whatever you command," she said, "I will do it because of my love for you. But I remain unconvinced that this foreigner can be the savior of China." For his part, Stanton Ware did not want a reluctant companion on such a dangerous mission. "Let me go alone," he said. "No woman should be exposed to these risks." But Chang Wen was firm. "You must travel as a mandarin, and a young, powerful mandarin always brings a concubine when he journeys. It would seem strange otherwise. Suspicion could kill you both." And so they began their training together. For hours every day, Zivana taught Stanton Ware about the inner workings of Chinese court life. She explained the hierarchy of concubines, the rituals of the Forbidden City, the poisonings and power struggles that had shaped the Empress's reign. She told him how young Chu Si had waited 3 years as a concubine before the Emperor finally wrote her name on his jade tablet, how the chief eunuch had stripped her naked, wrapped her in a scarlet rug, and carried her on his shoulder to the imperial bed, how she had been required to crawl up from the foot toward the Son of Heaven. Zivana spoke without emotion, but Stanton Ware found himself fascinated not just by her knowledge, but by the woman herself. She was like 3 people in one body, he realized. The Chinese part of her believed women should be submissive. The Russian part was fiery and defiant. And the English part, whether she admitted it or not, yearned for an equal partnership in love. One day they sat together in Chang Wen's courtyard, surrounded by goldfish pools and blossoming trees. Stanton Ware said something that made her pause. "You are blown by 3 winds," he told her. "A Chinese wind, a Russian wind, and an English wind. And the English wind tells you that love can be perfect between 2 people who are equal, who are made for each other." Zivana was quiet for a long moment. "That is what my father and mother found together," she finally admitted. "And is that what you hope to find?" She did not answer, but something in her eyes had changed. The day came when they had to leave. Teng Wen's astrologers had chosen the exact hour and minute for their departure, not a moment earlier, not a moment later. Stanton Ware looked majestic in his mandarin robes of green brocade with a coral button on his cap and a golden pheasant embroidered on his chest. His head had been shaved to the crown with a long queue attached at the back. Special gum made his eyelids smooth, with just a hint of slant at the corners. And Zivana? She was breathtaking, in pigeon red silk embroidered with magnolias, a cloak lined with Russian sable over her shoulders.
Her hair was swept up with jeweled pins that caught every ray of light. She was perfect pearl made flesh. They had 16 servants and rode in an old-fashioned green carriage appropriate for a mandarin from the mountains. As they left the city, spring had arrived in China. Almond trees were blossoming. The mimosa was gold as sunlight. Wild jasmine perfumed the air with something close to the scent of heaven. For the first time since they met, they could talk freely as the carriage wheels drowned out their voices from the servants riding alongside. Zivana asked where Stanton Ware had gone the night before their departure. He told her about meeting Herbert Squires at the American legation, the one man among the foreign diplomats who understood the danger. Then she surprised him. "You studied yoga," she said. It was not a question. He nodded. "I have always longed to go to a lamasery to learn the ancient wisdom," she admitted. "But I am only a woman, and a very attractive one," he said before he could stop himself. She looked at him with suspicion, then laughed. Manners make the man, and clothes make the woman. He found himself wondering what she would look like in European dress. Perhaps it would be disappointing, he mused aloud, all those frills and corsets hiding the elegant lines he could see now in her Chinese robes. She raised an eyebrow. "You are not very flattering, after all." They stopped at midday in a shady valley where a stream ran between silver pine trees. Servants spread cushions and set out an elaborate meal of duck and pork, steamed chicken and melons filled with fruit. Wine was cooled in the stream. When they were alone, Stanton Ware sat with his back against a tree in the cross-legged position of meditation. Zivana watched him with new eyes. "That is what I believe," she said quietly, "that you and I have lived many lives before this one." He smiled. "You are reluctant to admit anything good about an Englishman." Before she could answer, they passed through a village and saw something that chilled both their hearts. Boxers, dozens of them, in red scarves and sashes, performing in the marketplace. One was kneeling with his eyes closed, chanting to summon spirits. He called for a sword and began fighting shadows while the crowd watched in terror and fascination. They struck him with sticks and blades, they shot him with an arrow, and he did not fall. "We are invulnerable," his companion shouted. "Join us, and you will have heaven-sent powers. Heaven is angry with the foreigner. Burn, burn, kill, kill." The villagers began chanting along with them. Stanton Ware ordered the carriage to move on, but he could hear the voices echoing behind them for a long time. "It is frightening," Zivana whispered. And they were not alone. In every village they passed, there were boxers. Posters and placards covered every wall. The movement was far larger than anyone in the legations realized. As the sun began to set, they saw Prince Tuan's palace rising above the trees. Green roofs glittered against the western mountains. Stanton Ware turned to Zivana with a grim smile. "Now the game begins."
Prince Tuan was everything Stanton Ware had feared and worse. The moment he saw the prince's pockmarked face and ferret-like eyes, every instinct screamed danger. This was a man who could not be trusted. But courtesy required elaborate rituals, bowing, compliments, wine served on priceless porcelain. Li Hung-chung was there as well, looking older than his 77 years, his shoulders bowed, but his eyes still sharp. That first evening, the prince invited his concubines to entertain them. His 3 women sang and performed tricks with trained birds and magic. They were skilled and beautiful in their painted faces and embroidered silks. Then it was Zivana's turn. She bowed with a grace that made the other women look clumsy by comparison. Then she knelt and began to recite an ancient poem about nature, the soul, and the eternal dance of existence. Stanton Ware felt himself transported. Her voice was music itself, each word placed like a perfect jewel. For one moment, he forgot where he was, forgot the danger, forgot everything except the extraordinary woman before him. When she finished, even Prince Tuan was moved. I have never heard that poem so well rendered. It is as beautiful as you yourself. He reached out to help Zivana to her feet, and Stanton Ware saw something terrible in those ferret eyes. Desire, possessiveness, the look of a man accustomed to taking whatever he wanted. The next morning, Stanton Ware finally got his chance to speak privately with Chang. They walked in the garden among pink blossoms and spoke in low voices. Stanton Ware told him about the boxers gathering strength, about the placard he had seen in Peking calling for all foreigners to be killed. The old viceroy listened grimly. "I have seen them roaming the streets myself," Chang admitted. "Every day they grow bolder. I did not know they had come so far north." "You are the only man who can save China," Stanton Ware said urgently. "The only man the Empress might still listen to." "I am no longer in her favor. She listens to those who encourage her hatred of foreigners. She believes China is strong enough to fight alone. How can she hope to win against all the great powers combined?" "I know where my duty lies," the old man said at last. "I shall try to avert the calamity, and if I cannot, then when the fighting is over, I must negotiate the best possible terms from the conqueror." It was not the answer Stanton Ware had hoped for, but it was better than nothing. The viceroy left that afternoon for Peking, determined to try. But Prince Tuan was not finished. That evening, when they dined alone, the prince made his move. "A new flower was brought to my palace today," he said casually. "Young, untouched, pure. I would like to make you a gift of her." Stanton Ware understood immediately. The prince wanted to exchange concubines. He wanted Zivana. "The Taoist sages say a man should make love to virgins to restore his youthful looks," the prince continued. Stanton Ware forced himself to laugh. "Good advice for those growing old like the viceroy, but for us, there are many years of virility left." The prince's face darkened. "Perhaps you would prefer my concubine Peach Blossom. She is greatly enamored of you. My concubine Perfect Pearl is of a jealous nature. I would not hurt her." The fencing was over. Both men knew what was really being discussed. Doubtless Perfect Pearl would be consoled with jewels, or perhaps a change of environment. Stanton Ware stood. "I think we waste precious time concerning ourselves with women. Would men of intelligence, when they feel the tremors of an earthquake, stop to pick a flower?" He bowed coldly and withdrew. He knew he had made an enemy, but there was nothing else he could have done. That night, Stanton Ware lay in his bed, unable to sleep. His room had a sliding door that connected to Zivana's chambers, and he knew that servants were stationed outside both doors, listening to every sound. He thought about what he had learned.
The mission had succeeded in sending Chang to Peking with new urgency. But the prince was dangerous, and Stanton Ware could not shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. He was right. In the darkness, Zivana had risen from her bed to get a drink of water, and because fate had made her suspicious, she pressed her ear against her door and heard whispered voices in the corridor. "What do you want?" her guard asked. "The woman is to be taken to the prince." Zivana did not hesitate. She flew across the room like a bird and slipped through the connecting door into Stanton Ware's chamber. He was instantly alert, hand reaching for a weapon beneath his pillow. But she spoke in the formal language of a concubine approaching her master, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Most noble and exalted lord, your humble concubine, Perfect Pearl, asks permission to approach you in humility and submission to your will." He understood immediately. Those words were not for him. They were for the spies listening outside. "Approach, Perfect Pearl," he said, making his voice deep and commanding. "I welcome you. Without you close beside me, the night would be long and dark." She moved up the bed and lay her head on the pillow beside him, so close he could smell the lily fragrance of her hair. "I need your warmth," he said for the benefit of listeners. "Many women are beautiful, but you are more beautiful than any flower I have ever seen." "Two men came to take me to the prince," she whispered against his ear, so softly only he could hear. Rage exploded through him, but he kept his voice steady as he played his part. "You will stay with me until dawn," he said aloud. "I miss the fragrance of your hair and the sweetness of your breath." Then she whispered her real news, the information she had extracted from Peach Blossom during the evening. The Boxers were coming from every part of the country to congregate around Peking. They would enter the city on a signal. Who gives the signal? The prince. When? The 13th of the month. It was devastating intelligence. Prince Tuan himself was coordinating the Boxer uprising. The palace of the old Buddha would be surrounded by fanatics screaming for foreign blood. They lay there side by side in the darkness, not touching, playing their roles for the listeners outside. But Stanton Ware was fighting a different battle now. He wanted her. God help him, he wanted her more than he had ever wanted anything in his life. She was so close, he could feel the warmth of her body, smell the lily perfume of her skin. His heart pounded, his hands trembled with the effort of keeping them still. But he did not move. He did not touch her, because she had come to him for protection, not for love, and he would die before betraying her trust. "We must return to Peking," he whispered. "We will travel north as if going to Shantin, then make a detour." "I understand." Aloud he said, "The joy you give me, Perfect Pearl, is greater than any I have ever known before. But now we must sleep. We have a long journey tomorrow." He turned over so his back was toward her, fighting to control his breathing. "The gods bring you sweet dreams. You are a man above men, a lover of whom any woman would be proud." Play acting, he told himself. It was only play acting. But as he lay there in the darkness, unable to sleep, he made himself a vow. "One day, I will make her love me."
In the year 1900, China stood on the edge of absolute chaos. Foreign powers carved up the ancient empire like a melon, while secret societies called the Boxers spread terror through the provinces. They believed they were invulnerable to bullets. They believed they could drive out every foreigner with magic and fury. And in the middle of this powder keg, a British spy named Stanton Ware received orders that would change everything. But what makes this story truly remarkable is not the politics or the violence. It is what happened when this dangerous man met a woman who hated everything he represented. She was Russian, English, and Manchu royalty all at once. Her name was Zivana, and she would become both his greatest asset and his most impossible desire.
They escaped the prince's palace before dawn and made their way back to Peking with the terrible knowledge they carried. The Boxers would strike on the 13th of the month. Prince Tuan himself was coordinating the uprising, and Chang was racing against time to convince the Empress to stop the madness. This is where Barbara Cartland leaves us on the edge of our seats. The Boxer Rebellion of 1900 was one of the most dramatic events in Chinese history. Foreign legations would be besieged for 55 days. Hundreds would die. The Empress herself would flee the Forbidden City dressed as a peasant. But what happens to Stanton Ware and Zivana? Does she ever overcome her hatred of the English? Does he ever win the love he so desperately desires? Does China survive the storm that is coming? If you want to know how this incredible story ends, make sure you are subscribed to Daily Books. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment telling me what you think will happen next, and share this video with anyone who loves historical romance, political intrigue, or stories about love that transcends boundaries. The dragon represents power, danger, and ancient China. The pearl represents beauty, purity, and the woman who holds both men's hearts in her hands. Together, they represent a love story that bloomed in the most impossible circumstances. Thank you for watching. This is Daily Books, bringing you the greatest stories ever written. See you in the next video.